there, Brian Deckard here from Deckard and Company, and coming at you with another excellent episode of our Business Focus Friday. So, today's episode, we're going to talk about in our digital pulse is AI becoming more relevant in searches? Yes, it is. And then in our tips and tricks, are Apple and Android friends now? Yeah, we're going to talk about that. But then in our interview, we get to talk to an inspirational, motivational coach and speaker, Coach Jim Johnson. And can't wait to hear his take on his stories and all that stuff. So that is going to be an excellent interview. So, if you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing to the channel. It's free, doesn't cost you anything, it helps us out, and it helps us put together more and more content. So, this is going to be some good stuff, and it's a fun journey together. So, if you haven't done so, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much. And without further ado, why don't we get into this week's episode right here? Hey, everybody. This week's Digital Pulse. What are we talking about? So, we're kind of expanding a little bit on AI because, well, in today's world and this rapidly evolving world that we're living in, uh, we're finding that AI is becoming more and more prevalent and relevant in today's searches. So, people are using ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Grok. They're using those AI engines more and more to find products, services, small businesses, and organizations out there. So we're really hitting hard on this AI thing right now because, well, it's important. So with all that, what I'm going to do is we're going to kind of hit on what it is I'm talking about in this week's little digital pulse. So here's the big question: is Apple and Google friends now? And you have to ask yourself, what the hell is he talking about? Okay, so here it is. So, in a move that would have sounded impossible like just a year ago, Apple has officially teamed up with Google's Gemini AI to help power Siri. Yeah. So, translation: when users ask Siri for recommendations, services, or local businesses, right? Siri will now pull answers using Google's AI and Google's data. And yes, that means this includes your Google business profiles. So this is rare. This is like a very rare Apple and Google moment, and it's a pretty darn big one, right? So, what does this mean for local and small businesses? It basically means iPhone users asking Siri things like "best plumber near me" or "coffee shop open right now" are much more likely to see Google Business Profile results between Android and Apple devices now. So you're now talking about visibility across roughly 99% of the smartphone market. So if your GBP, or that Google Business Profile, is well optimized, uh, you're no longer just competing on Google's search and maps. You're showing up inside Apple's ecosystem too. So that's huge. That's like a massive expansion of reach without spending an extra dollar on ads. So that's pretty cool. So what's the big picture here? Google Business Profiles just became even more powerful. They're no longer just how customers find you on Google. They're quickly becoming the default data layer for AI powered search everywhere. So, with all that said, make sure that Google Business Profile is up to date, and Siri will happily send your future customers uh, to the business down the street instead, right? So, get that Google business profile up to date and optimized. So that is this week's Digital Pulse. Thanks for watching. Hey there. So, welcome to Tips and Tricks. So, this week's tips and trick, we're going to kind of expand on the AI and what AI has to do with your Google business profile and all this harping that I've been doing here in the past few episodes. This is episode number three, and I'm hitting AI pretty hard. So, why is that? Because we want to talk about your Google business profile. So, this week's tips and tricks is optimize your Google business profile. I cannot stress this enough how important this one directory is. And we're going to look at ours, and then we'll take a look at one of our clients as well. So, on our Google business profile, so if we look over here on the right hand side, right, we're looking over here on the right hand side, and what you want to make sure there's three things that every directory you want to make sure that these three things are the same, exact same on all those directories. And what's a directory? What exactly am I talking about? So Google Business Profile is a business directory. But then let's say you belong to a chamber of commerce. They will have a business directory. Facebook, your Facebook business page is a business directory. So there's tons of business directories out there. So you want to make sure that these three things are the same on all of them. And what is that? We call it NAP. Name, address, and phone number. NAP. So you want to make sure, and here we're looking at Deckard and Company. So we want to make sure Deckard and Company is the same on all of our directories, but especially here in this Google business profile, right? But then as we scroll down, we want to make sure that our address is on there. And here it is, our phone number. So those three things on our Google business profile, we want to make sure that in all these other directories that we belong to, that we have the same NAP information. Now, scrolling down even further, you can see you have questions and answers, reviews. Here is from us, saying this is what Deckard and Company is all about. So basically, our description. But then we have this little section right here, and this section right here is cool. And you want to make sure that you get active on your Google business profile. And what do I mean by that is posting to your Google business profile. So you can see here, you can add updates, you can add an offer, add an event. And if we scroll through these, you see they look kind of like a social profile feed. Yeah. And what's really cool about this is all those AI engines and search and all that stuff. It's looking at these little things, right? And then of course below that we have our social profiles. So you're going to do all that inside of your edit profile button here. So I'm going to click that really quickly and we'll look at ours. So you're going to want to make sure that you go through every single one of these tabs and fill out everything as best you can. So, and this is where the optimization comes in. So your business name, your business categories, make sure you fill out as many categories that really pertain to you. This is pretty important. And then, of course, here we have our description, right? Your opening date. And then we get into our contact information. So your phone number, your website, if you chat, with SMS, um, all that, right? There's your social profiles. Fill them out. Whatever social profiles that you are actively using, don't put bogus ones in there. Um, Social profiles that you are actively engaged in, put those in there. Yeah, right. Pretty cool. And then, of course, we get down to our location. This is where you're going to put your business's location. So if you have a storefront, an office, or what have you, you're going to put that in there. But let's say you work from home and you don't have a storefront or an office or a business location. what you're going to do is you're going to scroll down just a little further and you're going to see this service area. So you're going to fill that out, and then you're going to tell it uh, what service areas that you service, and it'll put them in there instead of an address, which is pretty nice. And then we get into the hours, right? So here we are in the hours tab. People like to know when you're open. And then if you have any special hours or anything like that, and then you can have breakfast, brunch, delivery. You can have all kinds of stuff. So if any of these pertain to you, be sure to click on it and then fill those hours out. But then we get into the more tab. So this here is like accessibility, amenities, parking, planning, service options, all that stuff. That right there is going to get you to a very well optimized Google business profile. So now I'm going to take you over to AMI excursions. So this is Captain Nate Costello. We got to interview him in the first episode, which was amazing. So thanks to Nate. You were awesome. And Nate here has a very well optimized Google business profile. Same thing. Here's his name, his address, and then he's got his phone number right there. And then if we scroll down, you can see he's got booking options, which is pretty cool. So you can book him in numerous ways. Any questions in it, then his popular times, all this stuff. Reviews. He's very active in getting reviews. This is very important. Reviews are very important. They're very hard to get. It's like pulling teeth sometimes. I get it. It's like pulling teeth. But they're awesome when they show up, and they really do help you in rankings and stuff like that. And not really just rankings. It's they will pop up in searches if someone's looking for reviews and stuff. But then as we scroll down, here you can see he's active on Facebook and Instagram. But then up here are those posts. So if we click on these posts, you can see he's very active on posting to his Google business profile. So there you go. So the moral of the story here in this tips and tricks for today is optimize the hell out of your Google business profile, because it is the most important business directory you or your organization will belong to. And in our digital pulse, we talked about how AI, um, with Google and Apple, they're kind of friends now in a way. So there we go. So with all of that said, optimize your Google business profile. Hey, thanks for watching this week's tips and tricks. We hope that it helps, and please let us know that if you need any help or anything about your Google business profile, we're happy to help. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye now. Yeah, so hey, welcome to this week's interview. And this week we are talking with the most awesome Coach Jim Johnson. So, Jim, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your organization and what it is you do?
Sure. So great to see you, Brian. So, as you mentioned, coach, and it's funny because being on LinkedIn, I get a lot of people that reach out trying to get me to buy different programs as a coach. But I was a high school basketball coach, so I was blessed to be part of an inspirational story with a young man. Believe it or not, it's going to be a 20-year anniversary in a couple weeks of the JMac story. And for those that are listening, it was a story of a young man that's on the autism spectrum that tried out 3 times for my team, never made it, but served as a team manager. I got very close to him and I wanted to give him a gift. And the gift was I put him in our final home game. And he shocked the world. He scored 20 points, including 6 3-pointers in less than 4 minutes. Little sidelight, his idol was the late Kobe Bryant. And 6 months after that game, Jason was up for an ESPY for the greatest sportsman of the year. And one of the other 4 finalists was Kobe Bryant. So he beat Kobe Bryant out for the ESPY. So it was pretty cool, which led me into what I'm doing now full time. But back then, this was in 2006, I started speaking on the side. I had one speech called Dreams Really Do Come True, and I was doing it part time. I also, a few years later, wrote a book about it called A Coach in a Miracle and started a little business. Didn't really know what I was doing. A couple of years in, I got some advice to join the National Speakers Association, and I did. And that's where I met this lady that you're quite close to, Kate Holgate. And
Oh
Kate
yeah.
and I have been working together for quite a while. When I retired from teaching and coaching in 2016, because I love leadership so much, I decided to add some arrows to my quiver in the sense that I started doing a leadership presentation, even though I still share Jason's story through it. And then the last couple of years, I started one on how to build championship team culture. And I started a podcast during COVID called the Limitless Leadership Lounge to help young and emerging leaders, because the context for that, Brian, at 25 years old, I was a head coach for a high school. It was my first year. I thought I knew what I was doing.
Right.
I led the team to 17 consecutive losses, and they decided not to bring me back. So in other words, I was fired at a young age. Fortunately, I was able to turn that around and have a very good career, but I wanted to give back to young leaders. So those are the things I've been doing, and I've been speaking full-time, mostly as a keynote speaker for the last decade.
Right. Yeah. See, all that's awesome. And I will tell you this. Uh today, I was with another client earlier this morning, and I told them the JMac story. And they were like, "That is awesome." I was like, "Hell yeah, it's awesome." And I know the guy. They're like, "What?" Yeah, so I might have you a book sold there because they're totally into this
Okay,
thing. So
okay, absolutely. So
that is awesome, though. That is an
yeah,
amazing story. Ever since Kate introduced me to you and told me this story, I've been a fan of yours the whole time. So love
so
everything that you do. Yeah,
well,
love it.
thank you.
Yep. So what we're going to go over. So here we're going to kind of put you on the spot a little bit because we're going to talk about marketing, because that's kind of what this
Yeah.
podcast is all about. And it'll be fun to hear all these and I ask these same questions to all my visitors, all my
Hmm.
interviewees, and it's fun to listen to the differences because everybody's story is different, right?
Yeah.
And that goes true with marketing, right? Yep. So what might work for my agency, my company, would probably not work for you, but what you
Right.
do would probably not work for me. So it's
Right.
pretty amazing. So what do you say we get
Yeah.
into this?
Absolutely. I'm ready.
All right. All right. So the first thing that we're going to go over is a little segment that I like to call your origin story.
Okay.
So what this question here, we're going to get, there's three questions. And the first one here is, what is that light bulb moment that made you decide to start this venture or this business of yours?
Well, the interesting part is before the JMAC game, I started to do a little speaking, mostly in the basketball world, but I was really getting my own personal growth. I know I'm showing my age, but I was a big Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and all those guys. So I was listening to a lot of that. So I was really into my own self improvement. And I was trying to figure out different ways that I could give back what I was learning as a leader. And then all of a sudden, the JMAC game came, and people started to reach out to me. And so the big thing is like, well, if they want me to speak, I probably should develop a speech. And
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
how I developed, and it took some iterations, but I developed this speech, Dreams Really Do Come True, that I travel the country sharing. And then when I retired from, because I was doing that part time, I really started to do more with leadership, and I have these 7 keys to be an effective leader, and then keys on how to build a team culture, because that's what I studied for a long period of time. And a lot of people struggle with being a good leader and how to build a culture. So that was the main genesis. Was the JMAC game definitely gave me an
Mhm.
opportunities. It was certainly when I put him in the game, not in my wildest dreams that I ever think he'd score 20 points in 4 minutes. But it did
That's
really
amazing.
show.
Yeah.
that dreams really do come true. And
Yeah.
what was really warmed my heart, Brian, was two things. So first, from a team perspective, the four guys on the court, I never asked them to pass him the ball, yet they passed him the ball all
Mm.
4 minutes. And that really touched my heart because to me, that's what the essence of teamwork. And then the other side is certainly I didn't know if I would get into speaking, but boy, once I got into speaking, started to hone my message, I was like, wow, I can make an impact in another way, and that was really cool.
Yeah. See, that's all. I mean, like I said, that just goes back to the whole storyline that got this started. It's so amazing to hear that, and then to hear you say the four players just kept passing. Good
Yeah,
humans, right there. Good humans.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
and you were part of that. You got
yeah,
to
yeah.
see those good humans come up through the. Oh, that's so good. I love that.
You know,
Good
it's funny
story.
because
I
I,
like that.
I I was fortunate to be part of a lot of championship teams. In fact, that team ended up
Mhm.
winning a championship, but nothing ever
Mm.
touched my heart and soul. What I saw that night, it was just the greatest
Oh, that's
experience I
awesome.
ever had in
Yeah,
coaching. So,
I just love that. Love it. Every time I hear it, it gives me the old goosebumps. You're like, oh, that's so good. Okay, so our next question is: how has this venture basically evolved from the original version?
so you know, I want to start by saying that, as a speaker, you got to come up with stories and everyone kind of develops their own signature story. I was certainly part of a story that was, blew up all over the world. So, uh, but what the involvement was is, Brian, when I started speaking, I was a teacher and a coach, and not making excuses, but I was not a
Mhm.
business person. So I was
Right.
absolutely clueless on how to run a business. So I got better as a speaker, but it's taken me a lot longer because I realized how important, if you're going to have a business, whether it's speaking or any kind of entrepreneurship, you have to understand the skill set to run your business and the skill set, in my case, to be a really good speaker.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. When you decide to make that leap into small business ownership,
Yeah,
it's a learning curve.
it
100%.
is.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And and I'm still learning every day today. It's like,
Yeah.
well, what was working a year ago is definitely not working this year. So it's like, oh, how do I
Right.
fix that? Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah. Yep. I agree with you 100% on that one. Okay. So, what is the one thing that you want I don't know if you'd call them customers, but like followers and that kind of stuff. But how would you want them to feel when they walk through your door or visit your website or when they come to, say, an event that you're doing a speaking engagement at?
So I'm going to break that down in a couple of things. Number one is I
Sure.
want them to be inspired. And so
Mm.
that because I think action occurs when you get inspired that you want to do something better for your life. And then I'm
Yeah.
going to break off into two branches. One branch is that Jason's story taught me so much. And what I wanted to teach the public is that not every dream is going to come true, but dreams that you don't expect can come true. And so, what I want to do is give people tangible takeaways after the inspiration of what they can add to their quiver to help make their dreams come true. And then
Yeah.
the other branch is that because leadership is so fascinating to me and is such a challenging subject, that I wanted to give people an opportunity to learn how to lead themselves better so they can lead teams better.
Nice. Yeah. That's pretty good. That is
Yeah.
like really good. Yeah. Hopefully someone can, when they're watching this, can be inspired, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to go into our next segment, which is what I call your marketing strategy. So this is the
Okay.
one that, it makes people think a little bit. But if you're ready to get started, I'll hit
I'm
you up.
ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you had to describe your ideal customer, follower, uh, whatever you want to call them, in 3 words, what would they be?
So I thought about this and I got to give you two 3 word answers. So it would
Go
be
ahead.
a leader needs help
Mm,
person needs inspiration. Those are my two keys.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah. And I always say the 3 words, but yeah, it usually always comes into a word salad. So it's like,
Yeah,
let's put a
yeah,
few together because that really is a better descriptor. And maybe I'll change that question up. But no, I love
yeah,
what your answer was. That was beautiful.
yeah.
Okay. So which marketing channels are you currently most active on? So we're talking like Instagram, Facebook, email marketing. Do you do SEO, any kind of local events? So that kind of stuff.
Hmm. So I'm on a lot of different things. I do have a small team that helps me. But at the same time, the one that I focus the most on by far is LinkedIn. And I will say, I kidded you that I've made a ton of mistakes. And
Yeah.
the one when I started on LinkedIn, Brian, I thought I was a kid in a candy store. I tried to connect with anybody and any, and then I realized as I started to study marketing, it's more important that you get people that you can build a relationship and rather than have, because I have a lot of LinkedIn followers. But
Yep.
now what I've really changed my strategy is I'm much more cognizant of who I connect with. And if I do connect with them, I want to build a relationship with them. And that's
Right.
something when I first started, I was absolutely clueless. I was like, plucking cherries from trees. But it's something I could really share with people that
Yeah.
huge thing in building a team, a huge thing in building a great marketing is the ability to build relationships.
Yeah, yeah, 100 and especially on LinkedIn, because
Yeah.
when I first got into it, I was like you, it's like, "Oh, hey, he wants to follow me. Boom, boom, boom." And then you start getting the baloney and you're like,
Yeah.
did I just screw up?" Sure did. Yeah, so
Yeah.
we've all made the mistakes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what's nice is we learn from our mistakes,
Yeah.
and then we can pass that on to, like, viewers that'll be watching this. "Ooh, yeah, good idea." So
Right.
that yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We all make mistakes, brother.
Right. Right.
Okay, so the next question here is how do most of your new customers, find you, like, right now?
So that's something we're working on, and that's probably the area that I need. I know I mentioned Kate and we are really devising right now a system where we can reach out more effectively. That's definitely been my weak point. So that's something that we're really focusing on in 2026 is creating a system. Now, I do one of the things that I recommend in marketing is that I want to spread kindness and I also want to spread competence. So I post a lot of different ways in that fact that, I'm part of a podcast. So we post podcasts, we post shorts. I do a inspirational thought every day. And that's part of our makeup. I do what we call a daily dose of leadership. So I'm trying to brand
Mhm.
myself
Yep.
consistently as an inspirational leader. The other thing that I encourage people is that to make comments on other people's posts and share some ideas instead of just liking it or
Right.
saying nice job. Really delve into that, and that's helped me build relationships better because yeah, I know I'm going to be redundant, but the key
It's
to
alright.
building a great business is building relationships and getting to know people and how you can best serve them. So that's something that, it's still something I'm still focusing in on. We do some email campaigns. We also have a newsletter that we have a list for. We have a weekly blog that we have a list for, and also we have followers on our podcast. So there are ways, but I would highly recommend to people, and this is something when I got into social media again, I was clueless. I
Right.
know a lot more, and I still got a lot to learn. But the one thing is they're always changing the analytics on social media. So
Yes,
that's
they
why I
are.
really encourage people to get a list and people that you can stay in touch with, through your own way. And usually that's through email. So,
Yep.
it's interesting that, and I'll jump off is that a couple things that I'm starting to do more is I'm actually when I drive, I try to reach out to an old client and just call and check in. And it's funny because you don't hear much about call anymore. So sometimes as a marketer, you got to contradict where everybody's going and go back to some old fashioned stuff. Like, everybody says email marketing is dead. I don't think so. As long as
Oh,
you're not crushing people by sending them 10 emails a day,
yeah,
though that'll work.
right.
Yeah. It's the same with, I've had some really appreciative calls with people that, I haven't talked to in 6 months. So I think those are some
Right.
things to think about when you're marketing, is that go against the grain. And sometimes it's just going back to some things that are good old fashioned, but they people do appreciate it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. We call that ground roots marketing. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
it's definitely not dead. And
yeah,
it's funny you mentioned calling. So I was like, I'm going to start doing that. And I got through probably the first 35, 40 of my clients. And either they didn't answer the call, they didn't call back. And I'm just like, all right, well, I'm not going to waste my time calling people, you
right.
know, but, but that didn't work for me.
Yeah,
But in the same sense, I am an open book. I'm transparent, and most of my clients know that they can just pick up the phone and call me,
right.
and I will talk your freaking ear off about
Yeah,
anything,
yeah,
whatever your issue is, whatever your problem, or whatever you want to fix or do to your website or what have you. I will
right.
talk till your ear bleeds, and
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
get a plan. It's like, yeah,
right.
because
Yeah,
this is what I love to do. I'm a talker. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So, yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, back to the whole LinkedIn thing. Yeah, and even email marketing. Email marketing is definitely not dead. It is not dead at
Mhm.
all. It's
No,
actually
no,
stronger today because if you do it right, you've got an amazing list of people that want your stuff. And
right.
LinkedIn,
Well said.
oh,
Yeah,
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 and LinkedIn you can definitely get lost in. So,
yeah,
just
yeah,
pick your
absolutely.
silo. Yeah, pick your
Right,
peoples and, and strike up those conversations. And
right.
that's wonderful. Okay. So, do you handle your marketing yourself, or do you have a dedicated person or a team or an agency helping you?
So I definitely don't have an agency, but I do have a small team. I still do the majority of it. I do have a young lady that does some part-time, and then
Mhm.
my manager Kate does some work with that type of thing. Like we
Right.
always do a newsletter together, and those types of things. So I do have some help, but I still, a lot of the thrust is from me.
Yep.
And I think as you grow and grow, I'm not there yet, but if you have a big team, where you can really delegate more and more, because it has helped me to hire a couple part-time people to
Right.
take some of the load, because it can get overwhelming. It's
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
uh, uh,
Yeah.
so those are things you got to think about. But at the same time, when you're starting and starting to grow a business, you got to be understanding the costs, because if you don't have enough revenue come in, you can't pay your people. So it's
Yeah.
something you really got to be cognizant
Yeah.
of.
Yeah. And then you cause hate and discontent.
Yes, you do. Yes, you
Yep. Nope. I hear you on that. Yeah, absolutely. We talked before our interview here about things we want to do together, that we can help. And I'm
right.
always ready to help you. So,
Yeah,
yeah, looking
absolutely.
forward to that conversation.
For sure.
Okay, so now we're going to go into our results and reality segment. So this one here is this is kind of fun in my
Mhm.
this is what I'm all about, this kind of stuff. So of everything that you're doing for marketing, right? Which one feels like it's actually moving the needle?
So that's a terrific question, mainly because I have experimented with some different things. But one thing I really encourage the people listening to this is that you choose something to do and give it at least 90 days where you're consistent. I'm going to
Yeah.
give you an illustration. This is an idea I picked up from actually a guest on our podcast a few years ago. And he brought up, he said, one of the suggestions I have in marketing is to send out personal videos. And he said,
Mm,
video is getting bigger and bigger, but how often do you get a personal video? And I was like, Wow, he's right. So, Brian, for 2 years, I've sent out a minimum of one personal video and as many as probably 10 in a day. They're not long, anywhere from 15 to 45 seconds, depending on, but like I'll send out birthday videos, I'll send out check-in videos, I'll send out
Mm,
congratulations
nice.
videos. But you know what's been really powerful? I want to give you a story because you mentioned, and I get it because I've been, as we were talking about the phone call thing, and I
Right.
get a number of ones where they don't pick up and they don't return, and I'm okay. That's part of the deal. But you know what? I'll give you a quick story that I think is profound in the sense
Sure.
that this gentleman that I had spoke at his company a couple years, and he liked my presentation, and he went to another company and he hired me to speak to his company last year in North Carolina. And the interesting part is, Brian, I did a pretty good job of staying in touch with him and I would send him personal videos. Here's the funny part. He never, and I kid you not, responded ever once to my videos. So after my speech in North Carolina, unfortunately I got a standing ovation. They really liked my presentation. And the gentleman came up to me and he said, Coach, thank you. It was awesome. And he goes, by the way, I love your videos. Now, why I bring that story up is he
That's
never
awesome.
responded once, yet, he liked them. So I think that's something that sometimes you don't quite get a handle on
Mhm.
because of the response. And certainly, we want analytics and try to figure out what works and what doesn't. But
Right.
because it is a little bit different. I rarely ever get a personal video, so it's something that
Mm,
is a little unique, and that's what you're trying to do.
yeah.
The famous unique selling proposition. So
Yeah.
the concept of doing something a little bit different. With the understanding that you're not going to get a response from everybody, but boy, them having a video, most of the time, I'm guessing they look at it. So
Yeah. Yeah. You're probably right. Especially if it comes in their email, they're
yeah,
going to click it. I mean, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
uh,
I've always thought that I'm going to do that too. Those personal videos. And then I started getting them from people wanting me to white label or not. They're wanting to white label their services for me. And I'm a
mm,
big,
right,
I do not like people that outsource marketing.
right,
Don't like it
right. Yeah,
because there's so many agencies and even so-called freelancers out there that try to sell
right.
you, I'll build your website. And they're not
Yeah,
doing jack poop for you, but selling you
right.
the website,
Yeah,
and it's like, so I hate those kinds of people. But I get those
right.
videos all the time and I'm like, I don't know if I want to be that person.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
so
yeah,
one of these days
yeah.
I might try it. We'll see how that goes.
Well, I think that really the big thing, and this is very hard in marketing, because obviously you have to bring in revenue or you don't run a business, right? But at the
Correct.
other side of it, I think that you really start to build a good reputation. It
Mhm.
does help you, and then people are thinking about, in my case, do they want a speaker? I think I'm a little bit more in their mind because of some of the things I do. So,
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think like I said, you're in a different realm from where I'm at. So for what
yeah,
you do, I think those personalized videos are probably spot on. Those things are
yeah,
probably pretty wonderful. Yeah.
right.
Okay. So on the flip side of what we just talked about, what is the one marketing tactic that you tried and you felt like it was a total waste of time and maybe even money?
So I would say because I haven't done enough of it, but it would be like I've done a little bit with pain and like,
Mhm.
and of course it's probably one that's kind of getting away from is Facebook. Like I've done some
Mhm.
Facebook ads and it really hasn't worked out for me. Some other people, uh, but the thing I do encourage people is that I, you need to try some different things
Yep.
and I probably didn't give it enough time, although for me right now, I don't think Facebook is the right spot for me. But we are considering maybe doing some LinkedIn ads, just
Mhm.
because I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and so those are the things I think you do have to experiment. But I would say that I'm very cognizant of the fact that I know what I want to do. I want to learn,
Right.
but at the same time, I'm very careful with people that when they come on very aggressive that they want to sell their services before I even
Hmm.
get to know them, that turns me off. And so I
Yep.
think as someone that's trying to market your business, I think it's something you keep in mind that my goal right now, and what I encourage people is, how can you add value first?
Right.
And if you keep that mindset and you give value first, people are much more willing to reciprocate. But if you come in, and this was something, a mindset that I struggled early in my speaking career, because I was thinking, okay, how can this person help me get a speaking engagement? And now it's like my thought process is, how can I help this person with a need they have? And
Right.
if it works out down the road, but that's why building those relationships, because the hard part
Yeah.
about that is you don't build relationships in 15 seconds. It takes
Nope.
some time. So,
It does. Nurture. You got to nurture those
yeah,
relationships.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I found on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn would probably be great for you.
Hmm.
Um, and what I found is, you get this person on LinkedIn that wants to connect with you, right? And what I do now is I look at their bio, I go to their page, and I look at them like, all right, they look pretty good. And
Yeah,
you hit the, yep, let's
yeah,
connect. And
right.
then like immediately you get the sales pitch. And it's like,
Yes,
oh, they're a turd bucket.
right.
Click, unfollow, get rid of them. And
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
oh, but you won't know until you do it. But then
right,
you get those wonderful people that will connect with you. And then they reach out, say, hey, this is what I do. I see what you do. Is there any way we can strike up that conversation to see how we can
right.
help each other? And you're like,
Yeah,
oh, yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I
That
do like
that's definitely
LinkedIn.
music. Yeah, music
Yeah.
to your ears when they're
Right.
thinking
Yeah.
more.
And when you got ears like this, you need good
Yeah.
music. Okay. So now the next question here is, how do you define success? So like for a marketing campaign, would it be like uh, you're not really going to be foot traffic, but would it be strictly sales, connections, visits from a website? How would you define success?
Which in that one for me, there's two things. Number one is making connections that I feel are going to be good connections where we can build a relationship. And then the second one is certainly because most of my revenue is through speaking, is I want to find ways that I can connect with people that can potentially hire me. So yeah, the bottom line was, as I'm looking to get more speaking opportunities, but also this is the tricky part is that finding the right people to network where you can build that relationship and be able to help each other, I think is the ideal, is what I'm
Yeah.
looking for with marketing.
Yeah, and that's pretty good.
Yeah,
That yeah, I like that. That was a good answer.
yeah, thanks.
Okay, so here it is. So, what is the biggest challenge that you face when trying to get the word out about your business?
The reason I'm thinking is because I came from a situation. I was a teacher and a coach, and I think I've always felt like I've been a giver, because as a coach, I didn't make a lot of money, but invested
Right,
a lot of heart and soul. As a teacher, you make okay, but you're not making a ton of money. My
right.
son's an attorney; he makes a lot more money than I ever did, so
Yeah,
I understand that piece. So it was very hard for me, especially when I started out. Like, I would get a standing ovation at some speaking event. Well, what you should be doing is showing that to your followers.
yeah,
Oh, this guy can really speak. But I struggled early because to me that felt like I was bragging. But
mm,
now as I've evolved, I was like, you know what? No, right now my purpose is to help others and
right,
become better leaders and help their dreams come true. And to do that, I've got to share that I do have the confidence to help people with my messages. And so that was a tricky period for me, Brian, is trying to
mm,
find ways where I didn't come across as this cocky, arrogant person, but yet
right.
you do have to show that you have confidence in your ability, that people will want to hire you for your services. So that for me, that was the tricky challenge.
Yep. And that would be like basically coming up with your resume. you know?
Hmm.
It's like, this is what I've done. Look at
Right.
how good I am.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because that's what you're trying to do in a resume. You know,
Right.
this is what I've accomplished in life. These are my
Yeah.
successes. Yeah. So
Right. Right. Absolutely.
yeah, all that there. Um, that's interesting. All right. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was our results in reality. So our last segment here is future and advice. So if you were handed a $5,000 marketing budget today, and you had to spend it, where would you go to spend it?
For me, with two things of me. One is really creating a system between myself and my manager, Kate, in getting a better process of reaching out consistently. So I would invest some money in people helping us find opportunities, and then we would do the legwork of reaching out. And the other piece would be to experiment with probably LinkedIn ads. Would be the two
Yeah.
things that I would spend the money on.
Yeah, I would probably imagine you'll probably do pretty good with some LinkedIn ads. Yeah, that would
Hmm.
definitely get you out there a lot more.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't understand, by the way, is, because we do a lot of social media management for clients,
Hmm. Right.
and they think that we're gonna start managing their accounts, their Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. And then they're
Right.
gonna become this overnight sensation, and they're gonna have
Right.
millions of followers, and you're like, the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's like, and what they don't understand is, when you make a post, how come I'm not how come I'm not getting out there? It was because you only have 200 followers.
Right.
They don't
Right.
understand you
Right.
need thousands to go
Yeah.
organically. So how you
Yeah.
supplement that is with ads, right?
Right.
Whether it be
Absolutely.
Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
advertise to get your reach out there. Yeah. So that's
Right.
pretty awesome.
And I
Okay.
would say the other thing
Okay.
is, Brian, would be just that you got to find out where your sweet spot with these various, for me, I still believe LinkedIn is best for me, but certainly for other people, it's not. It might be
Right.
TikTok, it might be Instagram, whatever. So I think that's where you do have to experiment and find out where your real sweet spot is.
Yep. Oh, I agree with that 100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Your LinkedIn's not going to be my LinkedIn,
Right.
Yeah. So try them all, and then
Yep.
find out where you're wasting your time, because
Yeah.
all platforms aren't going to give you that return on investment, basically, which is your
Right.
time.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So, what is one piece of marketing advice that you would give to someone just starting their own small business?
So I would break that down into a couple things.
Mhm.
Find ways that what you share, that you're adding value first. I know I've said that, but sometimes we're so set on trying to sell our services instead of making posts where people are getting some value from that. So
Right.
that would be number two, or number one, excuse me. Number two would be is that creating your own list. Okay, because as we mentioned, social media is something that is going to consistently change, and it's always, in my opinion, it's probably always going to be there to some degree, and it can be
Yep.
helpful, but
Right.
you got to create your own list, that you build relationships with, with the things we do, like having a newsletter where we get people that are subscribed to that, subscribe, if you have a podcast or a blog, and also just having some email campaigns so that
Yeah.
people are aware. But again, when you start the campaigns, talk about ways that you're adding value before you ask. I remember a marketing book I read. I can't remember exactly, but it was something like, for every 8 posts, 7 should be adding value. One is asking for something in return.
Yep.
And I think that's a pretty interesting ratio, because most people are probably going the complete opposite. They're
Yep.
asking 7 times and giving value once. So
Yep.
and I'll give that with the thought process is that starting a business can be very rewarding, but it is very challenging. And so that you gotta be in it for the long game, and that you start developing some consistent patterns that you will stay with. And then I highly recommend that you do a 90-minute, or excuse me, a 90-day evaluation,
Mhm.
and ask, what is going right? What do I need to change? And what do I need to completely eliminate? Because there's some things that are just wasting your time. So,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and what I really like that you're saying here is give it time. And
yeah,
90 days is a very good span of time that you can start collecting that data to really
yeah,
see if this channel is working for you. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what
yeah.
I love hearing that. And the ratio, you know, I have been harping on my social media clients. Well, ever since we started offering it, crazy
Yeah.
service. Um, and they're like, you need to sell, sell, sell. It's like, no, no, no. And I use instead of the 7-to-1, I use the 5-to-1. So for every five
Okay. Yeah.
posts,
Right.
this is the value that this is what we do, this is how we can
Right.
help you, the fun stuff, the
Yep.
informational stuff.
Right.
And then on that sixth post, it's now how can I help you? How
Right.
how am I going to
Yeah.
sell you my service? Yeah. So
Right. Yeah. It's good.
yeah,
'Cause sometimes the famous Pareto principle of 80-20, I think is a good foundation,
yeah, it
as
is.
far as that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for
100%.
sure.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. All right. So here's our last question.
Yeah.
Okay,
Wow.
so I know, right? Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so where do you see your business in 3 years, and what role does marketing play in getting you there?
So in 3 years, my plan is I'd like to continue to grow my speaking business, make a bigger impact with that, and also grow my podcast. So those are my two major business things.
Right.
And to do that, I need to continue. As I mentioned, the first thing is that from the speaking perspective, we have to create a better system because, I always go back in talking to business people is that you hear this all the time, but there's so much true. Is what is your process? What are the
Mhm.
systems that you have in place? And the funny thing, Brian, why I became, I'm not trying to be arrogant here, but I became
Mhm.
quite successful as a coach is because we developed really good systems and we
Yeah.
would tinker with them. We were always trying to make them better. But at the same time, our players knew what we expected and it was
Yes.
consistent. And that's the same thing I encourage people in business is you got to be consistent, you got to develop systems, and then you're
Yeah.
always tinkering with them. And that's something that I really am going to focus in is in creating our better system on reach outs. And what I have, this was another huge mistake that I'm much better the last few years is is a great question for you to ask yourself as you start to build your business. How are you staying in touch with former clients? And because that's something I didn't think of at all, and there was some drastic mistakes. Now I'm very cognizant. I have a little system where I'm staying in touch with former clients on a regular basis, and that's something we've all it's the famous the low hanging fruit. But those are people that, for the most case, if they really liked your services, why are you not staying in touch with them? Because
Yep.
between maybe they'll hire you again, but also uh, what's the best way to get more business? Warm leads, right? So if they give you a nice referral or a testimonial, that those stuff is powerful. So
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and we, here at Deckard and Company, we get a lot of referrals,
mm,
because I really do try to go out of my way to make the client happy. And
yeah,
I would say 90% of our clients are in that "you're awesome" stage, right? And then
yeah,
the other parts are like, "Yeah, you did great work. Thank you so much." You're like, "Oh,
yeah,
okay." But out of
right,
those other 90, when they have a friend that's starting up a business, they're calling us. They're like, "Hey,
yeah,
you did work for so and so. Can you help me?" And it's like, "Well,
right,
yes, I can." Yeah, so
yes,
referrals
yeah,
are great. Yeah, word of mouth.
yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah, and that's awesome. Yeah. And
yeah,
also, it's funny, you were a coach, I was a coach. I taught, I coached ice hockey high school.
right, yeah,
Yeah, you talking about a bunch of hoodlums.
yeah,
Great group of kids, but
yeah,
just like you, I had, we always had a meeting before the season started with all the prospects, and it's like, this is what we expect. There
Yeah.
is no deviation. And if you
Right.
can't abide by the rules, then let us know now. Don't even waste
Right.
your time trying out. Yeah. But
Right. Right.
that led, I coached, I want to say 5 or 6 years in the high school level.
Yeah.
And 3 of those we went to nationals 3 years in a row,
Wow.
and
That's great.
we represented Florida very well. Yeah.
That's great.
We didn't win nationals, but we
Right.
were always either second or third place,
That's good. That's
so
that's good
so it's fun
stuff. So
stuff. Yeah.
I'll give you one little quick thing. We had
Yeah.
this gentleman on our podcast, and because he was a high school hockey coach, he wrote a book. He's actually a pretty prominent speaker. His name is John U. Bacon. But just for the people, he's written a number of good books. But the book I loved was called "Let 'Em Lead," and it was about when he took over his former high school hockey program and what he did to get his players to be accountable and taught them how to be leaders. I highly recommend the book for people that are looking about a
I'd
team.
have to
So
look that one up.
yeah,
Add
so
that to my
I think
repertoire.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
By the way, your book is back there in my repertoire.
well, thank you,
Enjoyed
thank
that
you.
book.
So
Yes. Thank you for
yeah,
getting me that book. Yeah.
my pleasure.
All
So
right. All right. Well, that was Coach Jim Johnson, the man. Really enjoyed today's interview, Coach, and thank you so much for doing this.
my pleasure, Brian. It's always a pleasure, and I look forward to talking again.
Love it. Thank you so much.